At 10:47 a.m. local time, deep over the disputed waters of the Black Sea, a single alarming signal flashed across the radar of the USS Gravely. The Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, callsign Hammerhead, was carrying out a routine freedom of navigation patrol about 80 nautical miles from the Crimean Peninsula, right along a digital boundary Moscow treats as its own. Below deck, inside the cold steel quiet of the Combat Information Center, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, the tactical action officer, watched one fast-moving contact close in from the northeast. Its transponder was silent, and its behavior left little room for doubt. At first, it was moving at around 500 knots. Then it suddenly surged to Mach 1.4, covering nearly a mile every 3 seconds. It was a Russian Aerospace Forces Su-30SM Flanker H, flying at just 3,000 feet, already inside Gravely's defensive bubble. Then the pilot's voice came through the emergency maritime frequency, rough with static and threat. "American warship, you are violating the Russian defense zone. Turn back now or face the consequences." That was the provocation. But the real shock did not happen in the sky. It happened on Gravely's tactical screens. The instant the Russian jet's radar switched on and locked onto the US warship with a clear fire control track, the entire Aegis combat system jumped to its highest alert state. Its digital brain calculated an intercept solution in less than 400 milliseconds. The crew barely had time to steady themselves before the deep, calm, automated voice of the Aegis system broke the tension. Target classified. Weapon solution available. This encounter was never random. It was the natural collision of two rival worldviews. For USS Gravely, DDG-107, the mission was to project overwhelming technological deterrence and help keep international waters open, a principle tied to nearly $19 trillion in global trade every year. After Russia's renewed aggression, the Black Sea had become a pressure point where every patrol, every radar pulse, and every radio transmission carried strategic weight. What was on the line was nothing less than NATO's credibility. Russia's goal was straightforward: harass, intimidate, and collect intelligence on Gravely's response times and electronic signatures. The assumption was that a high-risk pass could be executed without triggering a lethal reaction. Their plan called for the Su-30SM to roar across the destroyer's bow, forcing the American crew either to break radio silence or change course. That would allow Russian electronic intelligence platforms operating beyond the horizon to capture Gravely's exact defensive posture. But the Russian pilot was working with an incomplete and outdated picture of modern U.S. naval warfare. His confidence came from the belief that Gravely was acting alone. He had no idea that his approach was not only being tracked by the ship's own AN/SPY-1DV radar, but that his entire mission profile had already been anticipated, analyzed, and countered by a kill chain that began hundreds of miles above Earth long before his aircraft ever left the runway. The threat platform was the Su-30SM, a twin-engine, highly maneuverable flanker variant built for aggressive air superiority and strike missions. This specific aircraft, painted in low-visibility gray and marked with the tactical number Red 32, was flown by Major Victor Kuzmin, a pilot known for reckless cowboy-style maneuvers near NATO airspace. His goal was psychological: use the jet's raw power, its 16,000 kilograms of thrust, and its ability to pull 9G turns to trigger panic and force mistakes from the American crew. The danger was immediate. Red 32 was carrying a full combat load, 2 R-77 active radar-guided missiles, Russia's equivalent of the AMRAAM, and 2 extended-range R-27ET infrared missiles. From its current position, all of them could reach Gravely in under 90 seconds. Kuzmin's tactic was to come in fast and low, drop to sea-skimming altitude to stay under the ship's radar horizon, then pop up at the last moment for visual contact while blasting out a massive burst of radar energy from his Bars Pisa radar to overload the destroyer's sensors. He intended to appear like a ghost and turn into a monster in the final seconds. What he did not know was that his side had a critical intelligence gap. His briefing was missing one essential piece of the American puzzle: the real-time power of cooperative engagement capability, or CEC. He thought he was challenging one ship. In reality, he was confronting an invisible, tightly linked combat network stretching across sea and sky. That blind spot was about to turn his aggressive stunt into a humiliating tactical defeat. The system that erased Red 32's advantage had started working 24 hours earlier. The first detection was not a radar contact, but an infrared signature picked up by a U.S. space-based infrared system satellite, which caught the heat plume of the Su-30SM's engines during pre-flight startup at a base near Novorossiysk. That was the first link in the chain. The data was sharpened by synthetic aperture radar imagery from a KH-11 reconnaissance satellite, confirming the flanker's full combat loadout. That information was encrypted, fused, and relayed through a secure, jam-resistant military space ground network straight into Gravely's Combat Information Center. It arrived not as a simple alert, but as a complete fire control package showing the jet's projected route, speed profile, and likely weapons release envelope. From there, Gravely quietly borrowed the eyes of its allies. An E-2D Advanced Hawkeye, flying roughly 300 miles away over Romania, was sweeping the Black Sea with its massive AN/APY 9 UHF radar. Through Link 16 and CEC, the destroyer could see Red 32 not just through its own sensors, but through the Hawkeye's clearer, longer-range view. This was modern networked warfare in action. Gravely did not need to expose its own radar unnecessarily. It could track the threat passively using someone else's eyes. At the center of it all was the Aegis Baseline 9 system, the ship's combat brain. It instantly built 18 simultaneous intercept tracks and prepared its main defensive option, the Standard Missile 2 SM-2 Block 3A. The SM-2 is a 15-foot-long, 1,500-pound interceptor carrying a 200-pound blast fragmentation warhead, driven by a solid fuel rocket motor that can push it beyond Mach 3.5. Inside Gravely's vertical launch cells, the 21-inch wide missile sat ready, its launch sequence already primed, waiting only for the final command to deliver a $500,000 answer to Russia's $50 million aircraft. What happened next unfolded in less than 40 seconds, a blur of electronic precision and combat readiness. At 10:48 and 12 seconds a.m., Red 32 crossed the 20 nautical mile line, the point where Aegis classifies a contact as a high-value threat. Lieutenant Commander Chen gave the order, "Set condition 1 Zulu, weapons free, engage on my command." The destroyer surged ahead, increasing speed to 28 knots. At 10:48:20 a.m., Major Kuzman's powerful N011M bars passive, electronically scanned array radar shifted into continuous target illumination mode, the unmistakable sign of a possible imminent shot. Gravely's electronic warfare suite, the AN/SLQ-32V, immediately lit up with warnings. At 10:48:21 a.m., before the alarm had even finished sounding, Aegis had already calculated the exact point in space where any incoming weapon would have to be intercepted. The SM-2 sequence entered its final hold. The computer showed a 99.8% probability of neutralizing the threat. At 10:48:25 a.m., Red 32 was only 8 nautical miles away. Kuzman rolled hard, dropped to 100 feet above the waves, and pushed the aircraft to nearly Mach 1.5. setting up what looked like a simulated attack run. This was the moment he expected the American ship to flinch, turn away, or flood the airwaves with urgent warnings. Instead, Gravely stayed silent, calm, locked in, a wall of steel and discipline. Then, at 10:48:27 a.m., came the decisive move. Lieutenant Commander Chen did not order a missile fired. She chose something even more effective. Initiate full-spectrum electronic warfare. Launch Nulka. The AN/SLQ-32V system responded with a precisely tuned burst of digitally coded electromagnetic energy. This was not ordinary jamming. It was advanced spoofing. In an instant, Red 32's cockpit became a storm of confusion. Major Kuzman's radar display did not go dark. Instead, it turned against him. In a single instant, Gravely appeared as a huge phantom contact 10 miles to the south, while 12 incoming Mach 3 threats suddenly showed up from the north. None of them were real. Every one of them was created by Gravely's digital deception suite. At the same time, a 7-foot rocket-launched active decoy from the Nulka system shot up from the destroyer's deck. It climbed and stabilized roughly 100 feet above the water, broadcasting a radar signature far larger than the ship itself, carefully shaped to pull in the seeker of an R-77. The message was unmistakable. We see you, we have broken your lock, and we already have a stronger decoy in the air, waiting for anything you send. By 10:48:30 a.m., Red 32 was only 5 nautical miles away, but the attack profile suddenly collapsed. Kuzman, watching his advanced fire control radar flood with phantom returns and his primary target appear to shift in an impossible direction, instantly understood the situation. He knew the run had failed. According to his own training, once the radar picture becomes unreliable, any launch becomes too dangerous to trust. The strain in his voice was impossible to hide as he shouted over the radio, "Bogey! Bogey! System failure! Aborting!" Seconds later, at 10:48 a.m., the flanker's engines roared as the aircraft pulled into a steep 8G climb, scrambling for altitude and trying to leave the electronic chaos behind. What followed was quiet, but strategically it carried enormous weight. As Major Kuzman's Su-30SM turned northwest and pulled away, visibly shaken and leaving behind a completely failed mission, the USS Gravely was only beginning to capitalize on the encounter. Its AN/SLQ-32 electronic warfare system had done more than neutralize the immediate threat. It had just completed a highly valuable intelligence collection operation. Every second of Red 32's radar activity had been captured. Its frequency-hopping patterns, the exact digital pulse repetition intervals used during target illumination, and the precise instant its systems began to unravel under the American electronic response. Everything was recorded, time-stamped, and organized in real time. The raw data was compressed and relayed through satellite links to U.S. Cyber Command. Tactically, the result was decisive without a single kinetic exchange. The U.S. Navy accepted no physical damage and walked away with an intelligence gain worth millions. The price paid by the other side was the exposure of critical weaknesses in one of its most advanced fighter platforms. What was meant to be a test of NATO resolve ended up handing the Americans a detailed guide to the Su-30SM's electronic behavior and, by extension, valuable insight into the wider family of systems connected to it. Gravely's professionalism kept the situation from escalating, while its technology made sure the tactical outcome was never really in doubt. It was a reminder that command of the sea no longer belongs to the side that makes the most noise, but to the side that can absorb, process, and act on data the fastest. As the crew came down from general quarters, the adrenaline slowly faded, replaced by a quiet sense of accomplishment. They had done more than protect their ship. They had shifted the terms of electronic confrontation in the Black Sea. This silent success carries a clear message. In modern conflict, the speed of information matters more than the speed of the weapon. Major Kuzman's Su-30SM, a Mach 1.5 platform built for power and intimidation, was made strategically ineffective because an older style of thinking ran headfirst into an integrated, real-time digital defense. The Russian pilot believed in the superiority of a single aircraft. What he failed to recognize was that he was never challenging one destroyer. He was facing an entire system of systems, a kill chain stretching from orbit to the ocean surface, sharing data almost instantly. The core lesson is simple. Never enter a technology contest with an opponent that already sets the rules. With KH-11 reconnaissance satellites, E-2D Hawkeye airborne radar, Link 16 data sharing, and Aegis Baseline 9, the U.S. Navy has built an information-centered combat network designed to process, predict, and outmaneuver threats before a pilot can even react. In many ways, Major Kuzman's mission was compromised the moment his engines started, because the opposing side had already built a near-complete picture of what he was about to do, long before he reached the horizon. What happened in the Black Sea was not a near miss. It was a calm, deliberate lesson in deterrence. The American response delivered one clear signal. If you try to slip through the gaps, you may discover there are no gaps at all. And that raises the bigger question. If the AN/SLQ-32 can digitally mislead and shut down the attack profile of a modern fighter, how would older, less integrated platforms perform against the full reach of U.S. electronic warfare? Share your thoughts in the comments about this new era of non-kinetic dominance.